Imagine this. It is 4:23 in the morning. The jungle is still. The river moves slowly, the way it has for 1,000 years. And in a village that no map bothers to label, a man rises before the sun. He does not call himself Vietnamese. He does not call himself a relic. He calls himself Cham, and he is about to pray. There is a man, call him Ibrahim, and he is the last memory of something the world has completely forgotten. His ancestors did not come to this land as refugees. They did not arrive as traders. They ruled it. For over 1,000 years, this coastline, this jungle, these rivers belonged to a Muslim empire, an empire that traded with Arabia, built mosques before Europe had universities, and worshipped Allah in the shadow of what the world would one day call Vietnam. Then it was erased. And yet, Ibrahim is still here. This is the story of the Kingdom of Champa and the people who refused to disappear. When most people think of Vietnam, they think of one story: the war, the jungle, the rice fields, the motorbikes. And if they go deeper, they think of Buddhism, of ancient temples, of a culture shaped by China to the north and France from across the ocean. Islam does not appear in that picture. It is not supposed to be there. And yet, if you drive south along the coast, past the tourist trails and the beach resorts, you will find villages where the call to prayer echoes at dawn, where women wear headscarves, where Arabic is written on wooden signs above doorways that look like they belong in another country entirely. Because once they did. The question nobody thinks to ask is simple. How did Muslims end up in Vietnam? The answer is not simple at all. It begins not with immigration, not with colonialism. It begins with empire. The Kingdom of Champa was born roughly in the 2nd century on the eastern coast of what is now central and southern Vietnam. For nearly 1,300 years, it existed as a sovereign civilization. Its people spoke Cham, a language unrelated to Vietnamese, closer in structure to languages spoken in the islands of the Pacific. They built towers from brick that have stood for a millennium. They traded with India, with China, with the Arab world. And somewhere between the 10th and 15th centuries, the Cham became Muslim. How does an empire in Southeast Asia become Islamic? The answer moves slowly across water. Arab and Indian Muslim traders had been sailing the coasts of Southeast Asia for centuries. They did not come with armies. They came with ships, carrying spices, silk, knowledge, and a faith that spread quietly through trade rather than conquest. There is a man, call him Suleiman, a merchant from Yemen. He anchors his dhow in a Cham harbor sometime in the 12th century. He is welcomed. He trades. He talks. He marries a local woman. He prays. And his prayer is noticed. This is how Islam entered Champa, not through war, not through pressure, through the slow, patient movement of faith across an ocean. By the 15th century, the Cham royal court had converted. Mosques stood beside the ancient Hindu temples. The kingdom that had once been shaped by Indian spirituality now turned its face toward Mecca. At its height, Champa was not a forgotten backwater. It was a maritime power. Its navy controlled trade routes. Its cities were cosmopolitan. Its scholars corresponded with Arabian courts and Persia. Now ask yourself, if this empire was so powerful, so sophisticated, so deeply rooted, why have you never heard of it? The answer is Vietnam, not the country as you know it today, but the ancient Vietnamese kingdom of Dai Viet, expanding southward across centuries like a slow tide. The Cham and the Vietnamese had fought before. There were wars, treaties, marriages, alliances. The border shifted. The Cham held their ground. But by the 15th century, the pressure became a flood. In 1471, the Vietnamese king Le Thang Tong launched a campaign that the Cham never recovered from. He took the Cham capital. He killed an estimated 60,000 people. He captured another 30,000 as prisoners. The kingdom did not fall in a single moment. It contracted, retreated, fractured into smaller principalities that were absorbed one by one over the next 3 centuries. By the early 1800s, the last Cham territory was officially gone. But the people were not gone. And this is the part of the story that breaks the pattern. Because when empires fall, they usually take their faith with them. The Cham did not. They scattered into the highlands, into the forests, across the border into Cambodia. They held their prayer mats. They kept their Arabic manuscripts hidden in wooden chests. They passed the Quran down through oral memory when written copies were burned. They remembered. Before we go further, if this story is reaching you the way it is reaching me, consider staying with this channel, because this is what we do here. We find the stories the world decided were not worth telling. Subscribe if you have not already. It costs you nothing. It means everything to the people whose stories we carry. The Cham survived the fall of their kingdom, but history was not finished with them. The French arrived in the 19th century and colonized Vietnam entirely. For the Cham, colonialism meant being a minority within a colonized people, invisible twice over. Then came the 20th century, the Vietnam War, American bombs, Agent Orange, a country torn open, and in the middle of it all, Cham Muslim villages in the Mekong Delta and the Central Coast trying simply to survive, to pray, to remain. When the Communists won in 1975, religion became complicated. The new Vietnamese government didn't pursue religion the way Ho Chi pursued it in Albania. They didn't ban it outright. But there was pressure, there was suspicion, there was surveillance. And yet the Cham prayed. A people who had survived the destruction of their entire civilization were not going to stop for a government form.
But Cambodia is where the story becomes almost unbearable. Some Cham had crossed the border into Cambodia centuries earlier. By the 20th century, there were hundreds of thousands of Cham Muslims living there. In 1975, the Khmer Rouge took power. The Khmer Rouge had a specific hatred for the Cham. They targeted them not just as a religious group, but as a distinct people. Cham imams were executed. Mosques were destroyed or turned into pig pens, a deliberate desecration. The Quran was banned. Praying in public meant death. The Cham were ordered to eat pork. Those who refused were killed. Between 1975 and 1979, an estimated 1 in 3 Cham Muslims in Cambodia were killed. 1 in 3. That is not a statistic. That is a village. That is a family. That is a man, call him Dawood, watching his father taken away for the last time, hiding his prayer beads in the dirt beneath his sleeping mat, murmuring Bismillah so quietly it makes no sound at all. The Khmer Rouge fell in 1979. The Cham began to rebuild. They rebuilt their mosques. They retrieved their manuscripts. They taught their children Arabic again. They had survived the fall of a 1,000-year empire. They had survived colonialism. They had survived 2 wars and a communist government. They survived a genocide. And they are still Muslim. Today, approximately 160,000 Cham Muslims live in Vietnam, another 400,000 in Cambodia. Their language, Cham, is still spoken, still written, still taught to children in villages that sit quietly outside the tourist brochures. Their mosques are small. Some are new, rebuilt with donations from Gulf states. Some are ancient, the walls leaning slightly, the wood dark with age. Every morning, before the rest of Vietnam wakes up, there are people in those mosques, facing Mecca. What does it mean to carry a civilization inside your faith? The Cham no longer have a king. They no longer have borders or armies or trade routes. The Kingdom of Champa is taught in history books as a footnote, if it is taught at all. But the faith remains. Not because it was easy, not because the world made space for it, because the people decided, generation after generation, through conquest and colonialism and genocide, that this thing inside them was worth keeping. There is something the historians do not always capture. When a civilization is destroyed, the conquerors take the towers and the cities and the courts. They rewrite the maps. They rename the rivers. But they cannot take what a man carries inside him when he kneels in the dark. Ibrahim finishes his prayer. The river is still moving. The mist is beginning to lift. He is not a relic. He is not a remnant. He is not the last of anything. He is a man who prays, as his father prayed, as his grandfather prayed, as a king once prayed in a palace the jungle has long since reclaimed. The empire is gone. The faith is not. If the story of the Cham reached you, share it. Someone in your life needs to hear that faith this strong exists. And if you want to continue this journey, like this video and subscribe to our channel for more.